Hey, it's Gavin with Project Blue. On my other channel, we did a workshop training with agency owners that are running paid traffic. The goal was talking about retention, right? As an agency owner, you work really hard to get a customer. You got to make sure that you keep those customers long term. So when you're running paid traffic, we looked at what would make a difference both in retention and to get the best results. We analyzed over 100 different sales flows and processes, what started the conversation when the lead came in, and we found some of the key elements. There was a couple things that were broken in almost every single one of the processes. And I wanted to zoom in a little bit here today and focus on how do you fix that issue. So I'm pulling out part of the training and I want to drop it here today so you can fix that issue. Because when you're running paid traffic, you need to make sure that you get proper conversion so you get the best return on ad spend. So you may not even have a lead problem. It could be in the conversion process. And if you fix the conversion process, this fixes a lot of issues that you might be having downstream inside the business. So what we're going to cover and what you're going to learn is why sometimes more leads is not the answer, the exact math on running a proper conversion system, the structural mistakes that you might be making that break your sequence, and then how to actually get the highest performing teams. Like, what are the people doing today to help you guys win? And then a real conversion funnel, what that looks like from beginning to end. So stick around, take some notes, do what you need to fix the problem that you might have inside your business today. Let's dive in. So most businesses think that they have a lead problem. They need to spend more money to get better results. And that may not be the case. It might be broken in the first part of your sales process, because if you buy more leads, this might be amplifying a problem. A lot of these agencies, when we looked at the business, and they're running ads for their customers, without the proper conversion system and sales process, that's where the leak happens. And why retention becomes an issue is they want to give up on the process. They think, okay, I tried paid traffic, it doesn't work for me. I'm going to go try a different acquisition or marketing channel. And if you use this process, you are going to get more conversions. And we know if you are a marketing agency and you get a customer that's willing to spend money for paid traffic, those are really good clients. So if done right. So buying leads isn't always the answer. You don't want to spend more on this process until you could get a flywheel, until you could get more of your actual ad dollars to convert into sales. And more times than not, there's like a couple things that you could do that really make a long-term difference in the process. So think about, here's some of the math that could be costing a ton of money for your customers or your own business. So think about if you get a lead that comes in and you're only getting, say, a 15% reply rate. Say you get 500 leads for the month at a 15% reply rate, you're converting 75 total leads into conversations, and based on your close ratio, you get 15 deals. At a $5,000 deal size, you're looking at $75,000. Not bad, but you got to calculate how much it costs to get 500 leads into your funnel. Now, not looking at the ad spend or increasing that dollar amount, just looking at the conversion ratio. What if you were to get a 50% reply rate? And what are the things that you need to do inside your sales process to get near 50% reply rate? Those same leads come in, but now you have more conversations. The more conversations leads to more opportunities for your team to close deals. So if you are able to fix this part of the process, this could be a huge factor on this part of your business. This is where you win, is if you could get more conversations into closing. So how do you close that gap? Because this makes a huge difference. Looking at one business that we zoomed in, it was significant. So that was the difference between a $900,000 or just under $1 million business to a $3 million business, fixing the first part of their sales process. and turning it from the old school email conversion, because that's how all the funnels were built before, to a conversational framework. That's where you want to win. And this is where you'll beat other people in the same industry. So looking at this different, we're looking at the capture process to the conversion funnel. And the old system, if you're still running an A2P text message in a conversational framework, it's not really built for that. It's built for, marketing blasts or transactional type text messages like calendar reminders or invoice reminders. That's what A2P is best for, not for conversational high ticket close deals. So analyze your own sales process, analyze your customer's sales process. And if you're building this for them, make sure that you're optimizing for conversational funnel, not for an email capture. Email is great and works really well, but if you're able to get conversations, this is where you could really help 10x someone's business. Because typically if you're running an A2P or traditional CRM text message platform versus say iMessage, you're going to go from that 10 to 20% reply rate to 40, 60% reply rate. And we see this all the time. So a lot of this is fixing that first conversation in there and turning it from an email capture funnel to a conversational funnel. Because ultimately that's what you want. You're actually spending money on ads to get more conversations. You want that phone to ring. You want people to come to you raising their hand with a need. And then if you force them through an email funnel, you're basically adding additional friction to your sales process that is costing you deals right now. So take a note on that. Look at your funnel. Run yourself through like you're a lead and think to yourself, am I optimizing for email capture or am I optimizing for conversations? The other thing we looked at inside the 100 different sales processes is, what does the first message look like on the prospect's phone? Most people, when they're writing this stuff, they're building it on their computer, right? And you build it on your computer and they never send it to themselves. They're sending maybe a long brick message, or someone opted in and you start marketing to them, talking about how long they've been in business and how it's family owned and a bunch of nonsense that the prospect really doesn't care about. Right? This person reached out to your business. Get into a conversation, remove the friction that doesn't need to be there. So analyze that first message. There's a couple things you want to look for. One is if it's A2P and it requires a stop and opt out language, that could be killing your conversion right there. The first thing you're telling a prospect is to stop and opt out. Right? That's how the last thing they're going to read about your business is, okay, I'm going to hit stop and opt out of these automated messages because they're green. I could ignore these messages. Even if you get through, because a lot of the phones nowadays are just marking these as spam and you don't even land in the inbox. So analyze that message. If you can, if you're on, say, Project Blue that sends iMessages, you could avoid the green messages. You could avoid that stop and opt out inside that first message, and then keep it conversational. Make it casual in there. Make it look like a friend just text them opposed to a business. Because if you're sending the wrong signal, you are going to lose people inside that friction point. So people are trained that they see these green messages, right? If it's DoorDash or Little Caesars or something like that, you don't want your high ticket offer to get jumbled in with that mix. And your customer's brain is trained on that. And in milliseconds, you could be ruining and killing your conversion. So if you're going to use a channel like SMS in your sales process, make sure that you're using the proper messaging platform to get into sales conversations. Use A2P messages where it's designed for, and then use iMessages what it's designed for, which is conversations. So behind every single broken sequence was 3 huge mistakes. Let's go a little deeper on this. So we were looking at B2B SaaS, we were looking at med spa, solar company, coaching businesses, agencies, home services. All of these businesses had very similar problems. One of them was they were using the wrong channel to market. They're using A2P messages when they should be using iMessage or a sales message platform. They had the wrong tone, right? They were pitching, or they dumped a brick message on them too quickly, or they were trying to send links and clicking when maybe someone had a question inside there. And they had the wrong end game. They treated silence as a rejection without having a proper follow-up sequence. They weren't asking questions to get people to re-engage with them. They're just making statements, or they were sending just canned generic CRM type messages that just people don't respond to anymore. So make sure when you're working with your customers and you sign them up into your agency, you're analyzing their messages. Our platform will actually read all their past messages and score the messages that are within their automation sequence. And it gives the account an overall health score, letting you know where you might have drop off. We're looking at millions of different messages and sales processes and analyzing what gets people to reply, what gets people into a sales conversation, and what leads someone to a close. That's what you want to do inside the process. Now, obviously, you don't need our system that is AI powered and looking at hundreds and thousands of different offers and sales channels. You could do this with your customers if you just put yourself through their sales funnel that you just built for them or that they had, and then test it. Analyze this. Is this the right channel? Is this the right message? Would you get drop off from a customer saying these things? And then what happens in these different scenarios and situations? If you're not testing, what gets measured gets managed. So make sure you're measuring these processes. A lot of the agencies in this training, they had a templated model that they just tried to apply to every single one of the businesses that they helped, which is great to have a conveyor belt and a process that you take your customers through, but it doesn't always work that way. You have to spend sometimes a little bit more time and energy to analyze this, or the template that you built 2 years ago may not work in today's market or with their offer. So make sure you revisit that stuff on a regular basis. Don't just set and forget and think you're going to get the best results that you got 6 months ago or a year ago. The market changes. Customers' behavior changes. You have to analyze that and change your offer and your process as well. Obviously, over here at Project Blue, we have the ability to switch to iMessage. So you could send the same type of message just on a different channel and get significantly better results. Sometimes 2 to 3 times the reply rate or results on your current system. So mistake 2, wrong tone. The first message reads like marketing. Thanks for your interest. Hey, did you get our offer? You info dump inside the messages. You're burying any chance to get a reply under unnecessary context, sending these long messages. Your first touch is asking for a click, some kind of booking, some kind of phone call, conversation. I've seen it all. Like I said, we were analyzing hundreds of different businesses' sales flows, and they were just all broken, just garbage. So make sure your messages are short, human, they end with a question. If you can ask a question, you could take control back inside of a sales conversation and steer them where you want them to go. So every message should be short, should feel human, and end with a question. If you ask a question inside of a sales process, you take control back. It forces them to think and then answer you, getting an engagement. And then make sure there's no pitch. Make sure it's under 25 words, and that steers clear of those breakup text brick messages that you send. And then the other mistake that was in there was the wrong end game. Most businesses stopped follow-up after 1 or 2 touches. Now, if you have a sales team, they should be doing between 8 and 12 touches. And I actually have another video on this channel somewhere in the beginning talking about what is the best method for conversion, what are the best times to call your leads, what's the best follow-up sequence that you need. So go ahead and watch that. It's like 10 minutes, I think. And it breaks down a Harvard study about getting the conversion. But make sure that if you are following up, that it's relevant, it's timely, and it's not overly salesy, pitchy, all that kind of stuff that we talked about before. I like between 5 and 12 touches within a sales sequence. That's kind of the sweet spot. And then after that, I throw them into a re-nurture campaign. And I'm not going to use iMessage or my sales message process for a re-nurture. They've already haven't responded to my touches. Put them inside of a retargeting campaign. Put them inside of an email warm-up. Throw different offers at them. If you're in the service business, maybe it's a free evaluation. Maybe it's a coupon. Take what e-commerce businesses do on like an abandon a cart method and apply it to your HVAC business, right? What are the practices they use to get people to re-engage with an abandoned cart? You're doing that within your sales process as well. But then use other channels. Use email channels to have a long-term follow-up sequence, because maybe it's 6 months from now. You don't want your line to get spammed out because you're using that for sales. So use those other channels where they fit. So here's one of the other things that a lot of people got wrong in this process was they're treating a new channel like iMessaging with the same old marketing playbook, right? As you use new channels and new tactics, you need to switch up the entire process. And if you're using something like iMessaging for blast, it's not going to work. Apple's just going to kick you off the platform. So make sure that you're using drips, all the stuff we talked about before, if you want to build a high-performing customer follow-up system and sales process. And again, these are the 100 businesses we looked at and who had these broken sales processes. You do this stuff today, you are going to fix that for sure. So not only did we look at failed offers and sales processes, we actually looked at real numbers on real results that are possible. And our system, because we built this pretty cool customer success platform that rates all the messages, has health scores, all these things built into it, we're able to measure, where they were before and then where they were after they switched onto an iMessaging platform, and how did they double their show rate within 30 days with the platform. So it was super helpful coming into this training to show them, hey, this is what is actually possible if you do the stuff that we just talked about before. Having the proper messaging on the proper channel, changing the actual flow, and then analyzing the process and going through each stage of the sales process and updating it for today's customers and their current offer. So these were real results that came from one of the clients that went through this and what they actually achieved inside their business. And it's pretty powerful just being able to see kind of the before and after they fixed the parts in their business that they needed to. So what you should do is audit your current system. Run through this checklist and make sure that you're doing everything possible. Do I know my current reply rate from the leads? What's my first message look like? Is it a brick message? Is it more than 25 words? Does my first message end with a question? What is the call to action for that lead? Is my follow-up sequence at least 5 touches before the cool down period? Do I have some kind of re-engagement process, some kind of offer, some kind of email sequence long-term that's offering value, not just dripping on them, so I can re-engage some of these old leads that weren't hot to trot, but I don't burn my sales message number and getting spammed out by doing that. I put them into a cold sequence and drip on them for a period of time. Do my messages read like a person typed them and not like marketing? Is my primary follow-up system some A2P system built for something else? And when a lead replies, does the automation pause? Can a human take over within a short period of time? What does that look like after? A lot of agencies, they are able to turn on marketing and fill up the funnel, but if the funnel's broken and leaking deals, that customer is going to churn on you. And then never blast cold lists. That stuff just doesn't work anymore. And then track the cost per book call, not just the cost per lead. How much did it take to get that prospect to an actual appointment? That is actually the metric you want to look for, not just the lead cost, but the call booked cost, and then work on getting that cost down. So score yourself. Again, what gets measured gets done. So make sure that you're going through that process and fixing all of the pieces that you need to inside of it. So during the workshop, we were able to analyze a couple of the customers' funnels, and all of them had one of these issues, or sometimes 4 or 5 of these issues inside the process. So again, if you're just pouring more marketing dollars on a broken system, you're amplifying the problem, which leads to your customer churning and firing you. Then it costs a lot of time, energy, and money to onboard new customers. And this is why marketing agencies have a hard time scaling. They get stuck. They're not able to break out of, the $50,000, $100,000 a month mark and scale past themselves and get into a 7, 8, 9-figure business. And if you want to get to that level, you have to leverage tools to do that. So here's 6 principles I want to leave you with. Leads aren't always the problem. Sometimes it's further inside the sales process. Conversations create deals. So again, if you're in a high ticket business, obviously if you're e-commerce or something like this video is nothing for you. Channel beats copy, making sure you're using emails properly, iMessage properly, and A2P text messages properly. Never blast, drip on your messages. That's, especially if you're using a channel like iMessage, so it feels human inside the campaign. Silence isn't rejection. Just make sure you have the proper follow-up system that offers value and actually gets people to re-engage. And every message should try and earn a reply from your customer. That's how you can win inside this process. Hey, if you made it this far in the video, good for you. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about what you can do inside your own agency or business, or how to apply this inside your customer's business so that you could stop losing customers, make more money, and scale your offer. So in this description of the video, there is a free tool that you could just plug in the first message inside either your business or one of your customers' businesses, client's business. Put in that message, it will score and tell you what's good about the message or what you need to fix. So this tool will just spit that right out of what you need to do inside that process. Now, if you don't want to figure this stuff out on your own and you want help inside doing this or seeing if maybe Project Blue is right for you, you could schedule a quick demo in like 15, 20 minutes. We'll walk through the entire thing, how it works, how we can plug it into your CRM, show you our agency program of how we support agencies and help them scale using tools like this. And it's super easy, quick. We could run an analysis on your offer and your business. Hopefully the stuff we talked about today will help you keep one additional customer and help you fix things inside your sales process and funnel. Thanks so much. We'll see you on the next one.